I finally watched I Kissed a Girl. And I can't believe, except I can believe, that they are cancelling it, of course. Hi, pals. It is me, Artie. They, them pronouns only. And I never watched the first season of I Kissed a Girl. Kind of just skated right past me. You know, the usual of the BBC doing a really shitty job of promoting its queer shows. However, to be fair, the first season did get like over 150,000 or something like that views on its first episode when it aired. So far, season two apparently has not had quite so many views, but also, you know, it's one of them things of like, we know it's cancelled. There's a bit less need to be invested, but also it is available on streaming like right away. There isn't like a pressing need to watch it as it airs. Also, I know that season two has a lot of watch parties happening, so there's probably still like a similar number of people either planning to watch it or watching it on that opening day. It's just that the numbers look different because it'll be views later, or it'll be lots of people watching one screen. Anyway, I decided before the second season came out, I wanted to at least give season one a little watch. So this video is me talking about that first season, what my thoughts are generally about like the format, the show, and then also a little bit about like the actual, a little bit, a lot. Will be about the contestants. I never really know what to call dating show participants. Because it is a competition as well, isn't it? Like, is that? I don't even know if the I Kissed a Girl, I Kissed a Boy ones win money at the end, like Love Island does. Anyway, but yeah, about the contestants and their drama as well. My initial thoughts were like they've definitely gathered like a reason, like a sort of mix of ethnicities, definitely a mixture of different backgrounds. I appreciated the fact that there were people from quite rural areas around the UK. We've got people from like England itself, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, which is quite nice to have a little bit of that like full UK diversity. But I do think they could probably work still a little bit more on the general racial ethnicity diversity. It is still majority white. And there weren't any East Asian women in season one, which is something I notice a lot in the UK shows generally, whether it's a scripted show or reality TV. There's often not many East Asian people in UK shows. I feel I love the fact that there was actually a lot of masculine or butch lesbians or queer people. If you're new here, I have been complaining about like where are the butches in queer women's media. I feel like we do not get much representation of butch or masculine women, so it was really nice to see quite a range of butch women in this show, as well as bi women. This season had, at least at the very start, there were two bi women, but I think like one or two more entered later on. And there's a little bit of body diversity. Like I did put on there that there was body diversity. There are some mid-size to plus size girlies on there, but again, not many, and they were kind of still petite, you know. And I don't remember any of the mask people being on the chubbier side, you know. So that's definitely something that I would like to see more of as well. It was a lot of like butch athletes. I kind of find the like first kiss thing a little bit weird though, that when the people are paired up and have to kiss before they say anything to each other, I do think that's a little bit odd. And in season one, there was a lot of like slow mo and close ups of that. I don't really know how I feel about that exactly. So I'd love to hear some other people's opinions. So yeah, I just don't really know how I feel about that first kiss thing, because it does feel a little bit forced and a little bit over the top to me. Because obviously, like when other people enter the show as well, they don't have to do that. But then they do have like the is it the kiss off? I can't remember what it's called. The kiss off at the end of like every few days or so, every few episodes, where they pick who they want to stay in a couple with, and that involves kissing them. Fine, yeah, I just find all that a little bit odd. But every show has their thing, doesn't it? So also, like, my number one pick of this season was obviously the Glaswegian drummer. I wrote her name down, but I can't remember. Fiorenza. However, also everyone is so young on I Kissed a Girl. The oldest for season one was like around 26, but most of them were 24 and under. Yeah, being 31, it's another one of those things where you're just a bit like, one of the girls on here, I think it was Demi, has had very little experience dating women. And I just kind of think, why did you come onto a show when you're so young and you've had such little experience of dating women? Like, I just find it really strange when dating shows do err on like the younger side. 'Cause it's like, well, why would you, like, you can't be that desperate to come onto a show like this if you've not even had the experience. Whereas, like, some of the other people, a lot of the others, to be fair, have had a lot of experience. Some of the women were from like very rural areas, and they were like, I've gone with all of the gay girls already. There's none left. Or like, I'm the only gay in the village. It's like, I can understand and respect why they might come on to a dating show. But like, yeah, I felt like Demi in particular, but this has come up, I think, maybe a few other times. And sometimes in other dating shows as well, like the one season of Love Island I watched and reacted to. You're just a bit like, you're so young. You're so young and have had like very little experience of actually dating anybody. Go and do that. Just go and do that. You don't need a dating show. I feel like a lot of dating shows would be a bit more appealing but also relevant if it was for slightly older participants, because that's kind of why I used to like Married at First Sight. A lot of them were people who had either been in like a few long-term relationships that were like absolutely devastating when they ended, or they have dated a lot of people and just had no luck, or just really struggled to date anyone at all, and they were in their 30s getting to 40s. So yeah, I mean, I understand a little bit of I Kissed a Girl is similar to Love Island in a lot of ways, especially because it is like, oh, they all fly abroad and spend all day like by the pool and in the sun. So you want to look at these like hot young people, but people over 26 are hot too. Anyway, that was my little bit of a rant about the show and like their participants. I think it's so funny that Danny Minogue is the host. Fellow Libra, but also when I was in my first primary school before we moved to the countryside, we had a dress up theme day to dress up as like your favorite musician or something. Don't ask me why, but I dressed up as Danny Minogue. Like, so thanks, Danny. That's another reason why everyone knows I'm gay. So yeah, Danny Minogue is hosting. It just feels so random. I mean, she's gorgeous, and it's very nice to see like a celebrity who is supportive of queer people. It's a little bit different to seeing like a music artist hosting a show like this compared to like typically it's just some other kind of presenter. I don't remember who presented Love Island when I watched it. Anyway, initially, Demi is making loads of really unfunny jokes about her partner, Fiorenza, like the chicken arms and like the kiss was mid when Danny asked like how everyone's kisses were. And yeah, that was really uncomfortable to watch. Like, I understand, yeah, very, like, it's probably relatable. I say a lot of embarrassing things when I go out as well. It was sort of like, okay, you can stop making those comments now because you don't know this girl. You don't know Fiorenza, and if she's like chill with that kind of humor yet, or like is comfortable enough to take it on the chin. Yeah, the other queer girls were like advising Demi to like read the room a bit with Fiorenza and the jokes she was making. And like, to me, I think banter like that is fine, but it is very much like you need to know somebody to do that kind of banter. This is literally day one, like hour three. They do have a chat, and Fiorenza's like, no, no, it's fine. Like, don't worry about it. And it's like, I don't know if I believe you, but whatever. Meg is one of the bisexual girlies. She's a fire breather, and I love the fact that they let her perform on the show. Like, yeah, go off, get some new clients, girly. Some of the couples had really gelled already, like pretty quickly, but also like two or three of the couples were like not feeling it. Also, really, I can hear and feel my voice being really like croaky. I think it's my grass allergies. I've been having a really rough time with the allergies. But wow, my voice sounds like I've been out all night. So yeah, Priya is like, "What's the gayest thing you've ever done?" And everyone's like, "I don't know. I feel like you know what you would say though, so tell us what it is." And she was like, "Oh yeah, I was engaged to somebody after 2 months who I've never met before, who is in the army, and her partner, Nay, is it Nay? I might have to get the names up. Yeah, Nay. Nay was like, that is a massive red flag, and alas, she should foreshadowing." Foreshadowing. She should have listened to her fucking gut. She should have. She should have chosen Demi. Like, wow, watching that reunion was a little bit crazy. Meg and Fiorenza are like having a moment with the blonde, curly haired mask like lady. What's her name? Leisha. She was just sitting there like, okay, well, um, okay, so you're not going to tell us who you're into, but you're basically really obvious about it. So I'm gonna go. See you later. So then Fiorenza and Meg have like a chat about liking each other, and then yeah, Meg and Fiorenza make out in their corner. And I did think like I felt like they matched better out of like the selection versus Fiorenza and Demi. I do quite like that this show also talks about a lot of either like queer history or queer topics. So it's either things that like other queer people can like learn, or also like a little bit of like straight people can learn about queer culture a little bit. Because I watched season one with my mum. My mum's not gay. People might think she is, but she's not gay. So I was telling her, I was explaining a lot of these things because I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the explanations on season one were not good. The explanation for a black cat kind of person does not work because like it's sort of an outward vibe, but it's also like mainly a personality thing. But they kind of they kind of match. Like I think I would be a black cat generally in person because of my outward aesthetic, but also because of like just how I am as a person. I'm not particularly outgoing. I'm quite sarcastic, kind of an asshole, takes no shit, grumpy cunt, grumpy bitch. I'm really not the golden retriever person. I wish I was. I'm too autistic to be the golden retriever person. The ADHD side does not show its face very often. They were using words like STEM, and I was thinking like, I feel like I know what STEM is, and I feel like they're not using it right. And I was correct because a STEM is a stud femme, so like somebody who's kind of a mixture of a stud and a femme. But stud is like a black lesbian word, so they were using it for white lesbians, and I was like, the word you're looking for, ladies, is futch, or like a soft butch, soft mask. Because yeah, if I Google what is a futch, what does futch mean, and it's like a sapphic woman with a mixture of feminine and masculine traits. Because yeah, it's the F is like the femme part and Utch is the rest of Butch. So like I just don't know why they were all using STEM. There was one Butch black lesbian in there at that point in time, and she very much was not a STEM. She was very much a stud. But yeah, so like there's a few other terms that came up, but there were some of them that I was like, oh yeah, that's like a reasonably accurate understanding and representation and explanation of the terminology. Then we sort of get Fiorenza telling Demi that like she's not really feeling it with Demi, and Demi was like, that's fine. But then Demi told Amy, who was paired with Meg, about what Fiorenza was saying. and that Fiorenza was interested in Meg. But like Amy was like, that's fine. I was not feeling it with Meg anyway. I could tell she wasn't into me. And like initially, I was not a fan of Amy. I'm not gonna lie. Amy, it's the posh girl voice. Like there, because there's a few. Something also bothered me about Demi too. To be fair, there's a few of the girls with like the posh accents that I'm like, oh, you guys sound so posh, it's painful. But in the end, I became like the number one Amy stan. She was so funny throughout the season, such a big personality, and I'm glad she did manage to stay in for so long. And because I don't know, yeah, she just like she really committed to the bit. There was a part where they had to dress up as queer icons. She fucking dressed up as Jennifer Coolidge from White Lotus season 2. These gays are trying to murder me. And I was like, actually an icon. She had a fucking wig and everything. And also I don't know why, she had two pairs of like knee-high boots and she wore them all the time. Even when sunbathing. Like why does she live and die in two pairs of boots on like a Italian summer holiday? I don't know. Amy, have you taken those off yet? But yes, like I became Amy's like number one stan in the end. They brought in a new gay to the house, so they had to lose somebody from the original lot. She's very similar to one of the others. She was kind of like a mask footballer. She fancies Meg, Cara, and Amy. Amy needs a new match, so she was like, I'm getting in there. But also, yeah, she was similar to Cara's match, whose name was Georgia. Georgia was Georgia's 28. Nobody said her name was like her age was 28. Okay, Georgia was the oldest one in there by the looks of it then. I am now just looking at like Cosmopolitan's like intro. Also, they have such nice photos. I feel like this is the only show, only like reality TV dating show that has given people nice like promo photos. These are so nice. Whereas like, whenever I looked at Love Island and shit, oh my god, they were horrendous. These are fun. So yeah, after Fiorenza was like, nah, don't worry about it. I'm not really into you. Demi was like, okay, who else do I fancy in here? Well, I fancy Nay. So Nay was sort of like playing the field a little bit with Demi and Priya. Priya like had a chat with Nay about it, and Nay says in like the aside booth commentary kind of thing, that she's used to having two girls on the go. I just found that so funny. They had quite nice conversations that talked about some difficult topics. So one of them was like, how do you feel about the word lesbian? And it was really interesting that a lot of the women there were like, I don't use the word lesbian. Especially like the butch women, it seemed, but I can't fully remember. Most of them use gay rather than lesbian because lesbian was used so negatively. But also, like, from my memory of being in school, both of them were really negative. But then there was like a nice part where Georgia shared like the AIDS history, which is why the L is at the start of LGBTQ. And I really like them sharing that because, we don't really learn enough about AIDS history in school at all. So if there's an accessible way to learn about our queer history, because that wasn't that long ago, that was only a little bit before I was alive, and it still impacts us today and is very similar to how the COVID pandemic has impacted us as well. But yeah, it's like the reason why the L is at the start is because they were the only ones willing to nurse the gay men suffering from AIDS, basically. Everybody else had abandoned them, and it was mostly lesbians who were there supporting them and nursing them. So, as like a tribute to that, the L is first in the acronym. It was quite nice, and all the girls were getting kind of weepy, both about like just generally talking about the word lesbian and talking about that history, and then actually talking about that story of history made some of them really want to use the word lesbian more and be proud of being a lesbian. Yeah, there was a few of the femmes there who were like, no, I am a big fat lesbian, like they were like really proud to be a lesbian and say that they are a lesbian and not gay. So yeah, I just thought that was a really nice moment in the show. And it's just funny that the woman Georgia, who initially like shared that she doesn't use the word lesbian, after she was the one to share the historic LGBTQ plus story. She was like, actually, that in itself has made me want to reclaim lesbian for myself. There is a letter to Eva, who's the new girl from Danny. It's a date for her to choose someone, and she picks Amy to go on the date. And then they're all like talking. There was a brief moment of them doing like a never have I ever, and one of them just sort of says like, never have I ever slept with a friend's ex, and like apparently none of them had done, and they were like, wow, congrats, because that's a really lesbian thing to do, is to sleep with a friend's ex or like start dating a friend's ex. So I thought that was amusing. It was quite funny, the women talking about sapphic and specifically lesbian tropes and stereotypes and patterns, kind of having a laugh about it at times. Georgia and Cara are going well. Amy and Eve make out on their date or something. I don't know. Nay talks to Georgia and Fiorenza about the girls before going to chat with Demi. Nay is definitely still keen on Demi. And I personally felt like those two had a little bit more like flirty chemistry than Nay had with Priya, but Nay made choices. Eva wants to chat with Meg before deciding between Meg and Amy. Priya and Demi chat, and Priya is pissed at Nay and calls her out about like the not being 100% honest about the whole like her and Demi thing. Nay can't give Priya any answers in this moment either. Then we have like the first kiss off. Fiorenza ends up getting Meg. Priya says she hopes that Nay goes with her because, you know, they've been together from the start. And it's like, wow, a whole 48 hours. Okay. And they always cut off the kiss off so that whoever you're waiting to really find out about will be in the next episode. So that's what happens with Nay and Priya and Demi. So yeah, Nay ended up choosing Priya. Eva chose Amy, but also she didn't have a ton of options left. So, but yeah, I felt really bad for Demi going home. But like I was saying earlier, I feel like you should get some more like gay life experience before you turn to a dating TV show. But she says she had a good time and doesn't feel bad about going. Somebody is a horrendous snorer, and it turns out to be Priya. I would never be able to sleep. I'd be like, hey, can somebody give me some really good earplugs? Maybe a new room. Thank you. Like, I can't share a bedroom with my mum anymore because her snoring wakes me up or keeps me up if we go on holiday. So we have to get like those little like apartments where there's a separate bedroom and then like a living room, and one of us will sleep in each room. I just have a note here that says Amy has so much teeth. Like the way she holds her mouth is so funny. She's just kind of, it's almost like her lips don't really touch her teeth. I don't know. It was just amusing the way the faces she pulled. I don't know. Also, she says later on that her sister is also a lesbian. No, two of her sisters are lesbians, and I thought that was so interesting. She's like, yeah, the gay gene is strong in my family, and I just thought that was really funny. Imagine having just like 3 kids and they're all gay. Anyway, Amy's still not sure on Eva because Amy is the like femme for femme person. But that's the thing. They don't bring in many like femme for femme lesbians or like generally open queer women into the mozzaria. I don't know what the fuck it's called, into the house. A lot of the pairings are quite typical femme masc pairings. And I just thought that was a bit of an interesting, but kind of also boring binary to continue seeing in TV. You know, they say everybody's an option. It's like, yeah, sure, but we're still always kind of going with like a femme masc pairing most of the time. Like there were no masc for masc or like masc pairings ever in season 1. And even like the femme for femme lesbian was like, well, there's no other femmes turning up anyway, so I'm also just sitting here trying not to get booted out of the house, trying to find somebody I am interested in, but there is nobody who kind of fits my type or preference. So yeah, Amy and Eva are both like keeping their options open and not like fully dedicating themselves to each other. Eva is the type who goes for straight girls. She's like, no, they find me. I thought that was funny. She also seems to have a bit of a complex about that because she's like very flat chested. So she kind of feels like she's expected to be and act like a man for a lot of the straight girls that she gets with, or like that's the thing, they're not necessarily straight girls. They might be actually queer girls who have just never had experience before. Some of them might be straight girls who are just curious, and that's okay too. But also, it is kind of an issue for the queer people they might be dating who might actually genuinely be interested in them when they're not sure. Here's another one of the funniest things. Amy just walks in one day with this blonde wig on and a Scouse accent and is just pretending to be somebody else. She is so funny. I love her. We finally get some tasks and like chemistry tests. I don't know how I feel about a lot of these tasks. I feel like a lot of them are a bit boring, and I don't really know what people are thinking a lot of the time as well with what they're choosing, especially at the drama, shit stirring kinds of tasks where it's like, oh, like this one was about red flags. In this scene as well, we see like Meg is dressed a little bit more masculine. As she said before, like she doesn't really know what to label herself in like the queer labels because she feels like she varies, but I feel like most of the time we see her, she is very femme. But yeah, so I just took note when I saw that she was dressed a little bit more masculine that day. So the red flags were that Fiorenza plays games, Eva flirts with other people, Cara is always late, Fiorenza would be hungover on a date, Fiorenza gossips about people, Priya is star sign obsessed, and Leisha picked up the like being clingy as a red flag, and she was like, oh, but like I'm clingy, so I wouldn't call that a red flag because I like people being clingy with me. And then it turned into a drama between her and her pairing, Abby, and everyone was just sort of like, did this have to happen in front of all of us? Could you guys not have like done or dealt with this later somewhere else? Can we like wrap up the game? Thanks. Fiorenza has a little cry, and Amy was really good about it. Not really sure what this is relating to. I don't remember what the topic was. Amy has realized that she has a little bit of a crush on Fiorenza now. And she's very confused because she is not into butches. She is a femme for femme girl. She came for a princess. This is what I've noticed that the femme for femme girls sort of say is like, oh, I came looking for a princess, but now I might have found a prince. Because this has sort of also happened in the second season. Somebody has said basically almost the exact same thing, line for line. Very bizarre. But Amy does have a pattern of having crushes on her friends, and Fiorenza is one of her friends in this house, like, or at least one of the closest people to her. And they're talking about Fiorenza not being super masculine in personality, that she's like very. When I explained some of this show to my friend, I was like, Fiorenza is us. Neither of us are cis lesbians, but we are both kind of like generally somewhat masculine presenting on the outside, but we're like girly, fruity, gay bitch. So yeah, that's sort of the vibe Fiorenza has, is that outwardly she's like quite butch, but her personality is still very like femme, I'm just a girly vibes. My mum also made a comment at this sort of point where she was like, it's nice to watch a show where they're all just kind of like drinking tea or just like soft drinks and not always drinking alcohol and like being drunk off their face. And I was sort of like, yeah, I mean, I think it's more encouraged and normalized in a lot of like the straight dating shows, whereas like a lot of queer people and queer communities are aware of being alcoholics or having addiction issues. So a lot of the times, many people are sober or are a bit more conscious of their alcohol intake. And I'd also say too, like I was sort of saying, like, the typical thing with lesbians is that they are looking for like a cozy vibe and not a vibe of like getting drunk and fucked up and going out. Like, of course, lesbians do get drunk, fucked up, and go out clubbing and stuff like that. But like as a general sort of like stereotype of the community, it's that kind of like cozy, hunkering down with your girlfriend in front of a film or something, reading books, the cottagecore vibes. Fiorenza and Meg end up breaking it off because Fiorenza couldn't get deep with conversations. with Meg. And Meg is one of the ones who gave Fiorenza one of the red flags in the challenge. The thing about Fiorenza being like, oh, I couldn't get like a deep conversation with Meg is like, yeah, but what the fuck were you trying to talk about? The one clip we got was her asking Meg if she works out. Fiorenza is a fickle little bitch. I'm not gonna lie. Like, whilst I love Fiorenza and I think she's super hot, and I love her Glaswegian accent, she is so fickle and just switches it up all the time. As soon as there's like a new shiny object, i.e., a new girly who takes her interest, she's like, right, see you later, pairing. She had so many different pairings. Her and Amy had many different pairings, but for Amy, she kept being sort of like ditched by her partner who took an interest in somebody else over her, which is really sad. Like, there were some really like quite heartbreaking moments with Amy talking about that, that comes up later because it just kept happening. Apparently, Nay and Priya got a little bit frisky. This is the thing, they all share a bedroom, which is quite a common thing with these shows, you know, whether it's Big Brother, Love Island. It's just sort of like, guys, I know you may have wishes, whims, things you wish you could be doing right now, but like, can you chill? It has been a few days and you're in a room with other people. Amy talks to Meg about her crush on Fiorenza. Meg is like, yeah, don't worry about it. You can have her because I fancy Eva, who Amy was paired with at the time. And they're both just laughing their asses off, which is also really funny because those two were paired together originally. I think there's a lot less drama than I expected in season one. Like, obviously there's a bit of drama, a little bit of like a lot of swapping around and kind of playing the field a little bit, but it's definitely not as bad as I expected it to be. There are some moments that come up later that I think are quite unfair moments, but generally it's not as messy as like the straight dating shows I've watched, and that was a bit of a surprise to me. The housekeeper, fuck, why is the housekeeper so hot? Why is she so fucking sexy? Like, what the shit? She comes in with a new task. What is the most important thing to you in a relationship? Sexual chemistry, adventure, or communication? Most of them went for sexual chemistry, which I was a little bit surprised about actually when it comes to like lesbians, because like what I was saying earlier about the cozy vibe and kind of U-hauling and stuff. I thought a lot more of them would go for communication. I was wrong. It's three new girls who chose the three pillars. So they enter. We have a femme girl called Beth who was interested in Fiorenza. We then have a blonde masculine person who ends up actually being one of the other bisexual people who shows up. I love M. I'm so sad for M. M did not find a connection and went home because a lot of the others were just very set in their pairings, and she picked Abby, who was very set in her pairing with Leisha. And then we got a new masculine girl, or like, I said that initially in my notes, but sort of as we saw more of her, she kind of had a bit more of a fluid sense of style, a bit like Meg does, called Layla. And Layla is also another one of the bisexuals that enters the house. Layla went for Cara, and Layla is another one who's very similar to Georgia, an athlete, kind of masculine generally. Abby doesn't like how Leisha has been with Meg. So, like, Leisha and Meg are apparently like friends. There's a lot that you really don't see in these shows, I feel like, because they'll bring up something and be like, oh, this has been going on for ages. And you're like, we haven't seen any of that. So, like, that would be great if in season two they would actually do a bit more of like the showing us stuff like that before they include that as part of like an important narrative discussion. Because as a viewer, you're sort of like, what are you talking about? That was not happening. And it seems very out of nowhere, or like very like sudden, that people are like close friends with each other. But yeah, so like Leisha and Meg are like all over each other, but in like a play fighting almost sort of way. And then sometimes we do get the odd like shot of Meg sort of hanging off of Leisha or whatever. But Meg is very interested in Eva, so I don't know. Abby was very unhappy about it, and I do like think it's fair enough to have a conversation around those sorts of things. it's a difficult one because I don't personally think you should have to stop being touchy feely and close with your friends, but I do think there needs to be kind of like a middle ground if your partner isn't super comfortable with that, but obviously not in like a completely restrictive kind of way. Fiorenza is now really into the new girl, Beth, who picked her, and Beth is apparently her typical type. Amy is sad finding out Fiorenza kissed the other girl as well because they are kind of like I said, they're besties, but they also kind of have like flirting banter. And Amy was hoping that maybe they would be the next pairing, but no, it didn't really work out. Amy has this story about being a queer teen at a private school, and it was really sad because she was very lonely, had to hide being a queer woman or a queer girl at the time. But like now she's an adult, she is so proud of being out and a lesbian, which I really like hearing that kind of story from people because yeah, there are a lot of us who come from spaces where it was generally very not okay and weird to be queer or like unsafe generally, where people have to hide themselves. So it was nice to have this story talked about, but then talked about how, she absolutely loves being a lesbian. Also, she was like, it's the first thing I tell people, I'm a lesbian. Because she just loves being a lesbian. She's so proud of being a lesbian, and I really love that for her. There's also a conversation where Fiorenza starts talking about knowing that she didn't want to wear like girly or femme clothes since she was like a really young child. Nay also says the same sort of thing. This is when we sort of find out that M is a bisexual woman, but like after her last like straight relationship, she started leaning into what made her feel, I guess, euphoric as like a queer woman, and that was leaning into like the masculine style. Like she has similar hair to me. I felt like she was one of the best dressed there, to be honest, too. So yeah, I love that she is kind of like a mask by cis woman because that's also really rare in media. There's not many like masculine bi women, and I feel like Layla, like I said, she's another sort of masculine bi woman, but is a little bit fluid with her style too. She's not always super masculine in what she wears or like what she does with her hair. So yeah, I just really like that conversation as well. How like it's kind of a similar conversation a lot of trans people have, that a lot of trans people do know from a really young age that, you know, dressing a certain way doesn't feel right to them. And I think it's nice to sort of add to that like conversation, add to the, I guess, like the data that, it's not just trans people, it is also cis people feel a certain way about gender presentation from like a young age. And it's not a phase, and it's not something that needs to be like corrected or taken out of somebody. They have this dinner party that is like star sign themed, where they have been sat next to the people they're supposed to be most compatible with, like by their star signs. So it's quite interesting to see who's supposedly most compatible. I did notice that Meg and Fiorenza were next to each other. That was quite interesting, but quite a lot of the matches were not near each other. I kind of thought it was a bit strange that Priya and Nay were next to each other. I know they were both Earth signs, so that doesn't necessarily mean that they were a good match. So I don't know who was configuring this. I have opinions as a star sign gay. Abby and Leisha are still having problems and making group things really awkward, so they have like an argument at the dinner table. And they're just having the same conversation over and over again. Like even the other girls are commenting on it. It's like, can you guys like move on from that conversation and actually do something about it, please? Thanks. Amy then gets with the new girl, Layla. Em thinks she's drawn the short straw as everyone's kind of paired up, so she doesn't think she'll get picked, which is sad. But yeah, like in the end, she doesn't get picked. And I do agree, she did kind of pull the short straw and just came in at the wrong time. The group have to decide which couple has the strongest connection, and they agree on, and like it has to be like one of the set couples at the time. It's not whoever's like now kind of thinking about being together. So basically nobody's together except from Priya and Nay and like Abby and Leisha, I think. So they all pick Priya and Nay. Then it's the kiss off. To finish the kiss off, Abby and Leisha do actually turn to kiss each other. They want to carry on being together, and I just think that's I was not vibing with them. I was not on their side. I'm not gonna lie. They also shocked me in the reunion, but like I was just like, girlies, move on. Did come out last, and she said that she didn't save a kiss for anyone because she didn't want to, she respects people's choices and decisions and boundaries. The couple who were voted the strongest connection have to then decide who are together, but their hearts aren't really in it, and they get sent home. So they sent Leisha and Abby home, and thank God, because yeah, they've had their time, and I feel like everybody else there is now in like a new couple. A lot of the others are new people as well. I feel like Priya made a fair enough justification for that after the fact, being like, they wanted to give the new people a chance rather than sending them home right away. They just had to pick somebody, like somebody had to go home. So Abby was salty about it. But yeah, like I said, they just had to pick somebody. They all felt like they had to talk about it right away. Cara was pissed off. Georgia was also pissed off. It's like, for God's sake, they had to pick a couple. What is your problem? So, like, yeah, Georgia and Cara started pissing me off at this point because it was just like, it doesn't make sense what you're arguing about. And they do something similar later on with Eva as well. Like, Eva's mad here too. I just think it's very interesting that it seems to be those three. And like sometimes Meg, but she tends to keep like a step back and doesn't voice her like thoughts in front of whoever she's upset about or at. This happens a couple of times with the same three people and Priya. Like, for one, why is all of the anger against Priya here? They both had to make that decision, but it's just because of how like Priya spoke about it. And it's like, I think that's a you problem, girls. And it's very interesting. It's three white girls getting mad at one brown girl. I'm not gonna lie, and they just want to know that she feels bad for sending somebody home. And it's like, well, obviously she does because she was friends with them too. Why is it such like a automatically negative thought about Priya and no like benefit of the doubt that maybe things she said have just come out a bit blunt, or like that's just the way she's trying to cope with feeling bad about it? Amy then picks up the mood with like a silly competition thing, which I thought was funny. It's like a PE sports day kind of vibe. Then there's a conversation talking about women's sports on TV versus men's and like the pay gap. And, when they do have women's sports on TV, people do really watch it. So it's like, why isn't women's sport on TV more versus men's sport? Especially women's football didn't get much attention until they won like the World Cup or something. I don't know. I don't know anything about sports. I don't watch any sports. But yeah, I thought as well that was a good conversation to have, because that's not even like a queer conversation. That's just a sexism kind of conversation. Layla and Priya realize they actually live near each other, but the reason why they've never actually met is because Layla hasn't like gone out clubbing in that area. And then they have a really interesting conversation talking about like race and culture, because yeah, Layla is black. She has a particular experience about being a black queer woman in, I can't remember where exactly, but it is in Cardiff. It is in Wales. And Priya has a similar sort of experience, that she was like very nerdy and lonely as like a teenager and was just kind of known as like the nerdy brown girl. So yeah, again, like it's nice to see those kind of conversations happening as well, even when the people don't actually live near each other. It's just talking about how their queerness and their ethnicity or race kind of intersect and impacts their experience versus like the white lesbians or white bisexuals in the house. So yeah, then it's the dressing up as like gay icons party. Meg dressed up as Barbie. I thought that was pretty good costume, and she did like a good physical like caricature of it. And there's also a little bit of like a history lesson for real people. And then this is where Amy is dressed as Jennifer Coolidge and does the whole like, these gays are trying to murder me line. I'm not gonna lie, maybe the reason why I love Amy is because she comes off as like very neurodivergent. She's always picking up people's accents, or like throwing in random accents when she's talking. She's always sort of like doing something. She's always like coming up with silly ideas and trying to make people laugh. Yeah, she comes off very neurodivergent to me, leaning towards ADHD, but I don't know. We get some more gays coming in. We do finally have another like darker skinned black woman, which is again something that we don't really see a lot of in a lot of media generally. Her name is Thea, and she's into masks, and and she also knows name. Interesting. I was sort of waiting for something like that to happen. I feel like they do it on purpose in straight dating shows as well, as they bring in people who know somebody who's been in the house already. It's one way of stirring some drama, making people second guess themselves. Then we also have Hannah, who is a femme from Glasgow, and she's sort of keeping her cards close to her chest about who she's interested in or what she's interested in. Then they play spin the bottle, and they have to choose who they want to kiss most, who is not in their couple. And everyone's like a pretty good sport about it, to be fair. Hannah says in the aside room that she's into Amy, like that's very much her type. Amy says that Hannah is very much her type as well. But this is sort of that moment where Fee is sort of like, Fiorenza is like, I think I do kind of like Amy, even though Amy's not necessarily my type. Don't know why. Not really sure why Amy isn't Fiorenza's type. Fiorenza has fucking dated everybody in this house. So Fiorenza is like, it's way overdue Amy and kisses Amy in this game. Eva has now decided she also likes Hannah, and Hannah is interested in Eva as well. Eva is the one who goes for like the straight looking girlies. So like this brings up some instability between Eva and Meg, although Eva does sort of show like she is not going to have like a wandering eye and she is dedicated to Meg. Then we find out Fiorenza is kind of feeling Amy. Layla has dumped Amy already. Can't remember what the reason was, just wasn't feeling it. Layla talks to the other bi girls. This is where we have like a nice bi girly conversation. And then also Priya's there. And Priya says like there's a bad rap for bi women in like the queer community. And she's glad that she was able to be around to listen to like the three proud bisexual women when they were venting a bit about their bad experiences. And like, yeah, again, a very nice conversation to see aired on TV, because yeah, it's something that comes up online as well, like every Pride Month or like every few months. It's always like bisexuals are bad partners and bad people because they like more than one gender, so they are bad and they are more likely to cheat on you and they're greedy. And it's like, wow, I have not cheated. I have been cheated on. Fiorenza talks to Priya and Cara about changing her mind again about who she's interested in. She's like, I want a black cat, to her like golden retriever vibe. She wants somebody with a bit more of an edge to them. Then there's the chemistry test challenge again. Someone has to pick someone else and they have to go and do like an intimate task inside the room who isn't their own like pairing partner. I also noticed here that Thea is one of the like more curvier women too. So this whole task brings up a lot of drama for some people. Amy gets to go in and make out with Hannah a few times, and Fiorenza feels jealous. She's like, oh, I thought Amy might have chosen me for at least one thing. It's like, well, did you choose Amy for any of the things? No. Fiorenza then dumps Beth after this task and explains the whole like black cat golden retriever thing. She's like, oh, I feel like we're both golden retrievers. And then Beth says in like the aside box, she's like, I am a black cat. But I guess we just weren't right together. So she felt like I was a golden retriever type. I thought it was very bizarre. I did not get golden retriever vibes off of Beth at all. She's very like low energy, like a lounging around cat. But like outwardly, she was kind of a bit plain. That happened. Priya and Nay tell Amy to keep the door open to Fiorenza. So like they're trying to like wingman Fiorenza and Amy together. I thought it was also a really funny conversation about how lesbian or like queer women sex just kind of goes on and on and on. There's not necessarily like an end point. I thought that was very funny. I wasn't sure if that was going to come up. Priya and Nay have a conversation with Fiorenza about Amy again. Fiorenza pulls Amy for a chat because they're like, you've got to make your move. She's interested in Hannah. You've got to try, otherwise you're going home because you've dumped Beth. Like, I thought she jumped the gun a bit of dumping Beth. Or like I would have maybe gone and like spoken to somebody else, been like, You don't have a pair, I don't have a pair. Do you want to pair up so we can stay in a bit longer and hopefully either I can get with that girl or like maybe a new girl will come in who'd be into you, that sort of thing. But they didn't like, I was surprised that none of those kinds of like conversations happened. I wonder if that will happen in season two. I would definitely have been thinking about the strategy of staying in a bit longer if I hadn't found somebody I was interested in. So yeah, like they're like telling Fiorenza she needs to like make her move. Amy pulls Fiorenza up on jumping ship for Beth after they'd had like an open conversation about being kind of into each other, which is like such a mood. Yeah, go off, Amy. You're right. Meg and Hannah decide to teach everybody else a dance, and it's a very femme slutty dance, which is fine, no problem. But also, it was a very particular kind of dance that maybe was not comfortable for all of the women. Yeah, Georgia kisses Eva on the mouth as like a joke, even though they've been kind of having like on off jokey competition around being very similar mask women into similar women. Yeah, I don't know where that came from. I thought that was very random. It was almost like two dudes kissing each other for a laugh. It was, yeah, very bizarre. Hannah opens up to Amy about her disabled brother dying when she was younger. I thought that was a really important conversation to have. Definitely something difficult to talk about, but also just like how much she loved her disabled brother, because I feel like a lot of media portrays disabled people as just like burdens and nobody actually loves them. They just feel like they have to do these things when they have a disabled like family member or loved one. Whereas this felt a lot more like, oh no, she really loved her brother, loved having him around, loved him seeing her doing, I think she was doing gymnastics when she was a teenager or something. So yeah, I thought that was an important conversation. Hannah and Thea then get to pick someone for double dates in the private pool. Layla points out in the booth it's so gay she's going on a date with a girl and double dating with a girl she just ended things with yesterday. Layla is very awkward about that whole thing. I don't really understand what Layla's problem is. I'm not gonna lie. She's like, oh, I don't move on that quickly. It's like, yeah, but you were barely invested in the first place. You knew her for like a day. What do you mean? Oh, it takes me a long time to move on. Yeah, I just could not understand what was going on there because it just kept being a problem. Thea was interested in her, but she was just like cock blocking the whole thing the whole time because she broke up with Amy, which obviously really upset Amy initially. But then she was like, well, seeing as you're not interested in me, I'm gonna go after Hannah then. Bye. And was like moving on with her life. And again, everyone else is like telling Fiorenza like she has to tell Amy she's actually interested, otherwise she will regret it and will just not have a chance. They then return from the dates. Fiorenza pulls Amy for a chat. Layla again is also okay. This is something that I sort of relate to, and that's something that I think makes a lot of sense. Layla says that she's like struggling with the queer vibe, like how the queer community date. That is something that I think is pretty relatable for me, particularly like as a bi person too. When you date straight men, the dating is different compared to when you date queer people. And I say people because like obviously I date other trans people, I date queer men, queer women. That's different compared to dating straight men. Like the straight dating rules are pretty different to the queer dating rules, or like what's considered normal. And it is a bit of an adjustment and something you kind of have to work with and have discussions with your partners about more so than you would if you were dating a straight person. And then again, she's talking about how she's struggling with the vibe with Thea, which I don't understand. Thea is then getting the lowdown on the tea about Fiorenza with Priya and Nay. Don't know why Priya and Nay felt the need to dish that to Thea, who obviously came in at the same time as Hannah. So I'm assuming that they are like would be friendly enough to like share that kind of conversation because they came in at the same time, so they are sort of on the same kind of level compared to everybody else, which she does. She does go and tell Hannah. Meg and Eva are still going well. Eva's like, I've never felt like this before. I really feel like I'm actually being seen as like a woman and not like a default man. Thea, like I said, tells Hannah the goss. Hannah confronts Amy, but Amy didn't know or didn't know what to say. Hannah says later that, she's been in a similar situation before with an ex and her friend, so she doesn't like this scenario. Like her girlfriend left her for a friend or something like that. I think that's what it was. Hannah and Amy have another chat and it's all okay again, and they have a snog because Amy's always asking for a snog. Amy's like, we have a lot of sexual connection, but me and Fiorenza have more of like an emotional connection that I think could build, and I've definitely got a little crush on her. Layla then pulls Thea for a chat. Layla is throwing her chance to get to know Thea away, basically, because she won't just go like, yeah, let's explore this. She's like, no, she's just putting so much pressure on it. And it's like, you barely know anybody in here. Just like, see how it goes. You're not like committing to marriage. It's literally fine. And then, here's the bit I was talking about earlier. If I was Thea, I'd be speaking to Fiorenza about hooking up as like the next pairing, so I could stay longer and wait for somebody else to come in, and Fiorenza can stay and pursue Amy, even though Thea and Hannah are sort of like friends. I would still consider like having that conversation. Then we have the kiss off. Fiorenza says Amy. Thea doesn't save her kiss for anybody. Hannah says Amy, and then Amy and Layla are left. Layla says nobody, and then Amy ends up picking Hannah. I was a little bit shocked, actually. I didn't think she was going to pick Hannah because Hannah's so new, I guess, and would have maybe explored the foundation of what she's already created with Fiorenza. Fiorenza says in the aside that she'll be waiting for Amy on the outside if things don't work out with Hannah in the house. Because we're near the end now. Like, there's only like an episode or two left before the reunion. The girls don't feel like Hannah reads the vibe much either. It feels very similar, except for maybe a bit worse, to like Demi at the start, where she was just making really bad jokes. But now Hannah seems to just be making a lot of kind of critical comments that aren't very nice and aren't funny. But also, yeah, it wasn't reading the room that everyone else is going to miss Fiorenza, but like also especially Amy because they were close. She's like, yeah, they picked me. She picked me. I won. And it's like, okay, chill out. Everyone here is going to miss her because she was here from day one, and so are most of the people still around. Priya is then asking Eva what she thinks of Amy and Hannah, and she, like, look, this little conversation, I think Priya does get a little bit too bitchy in what she was saying, but otherwise I generally agreed with the point she was trying to make. But also she picked the wrong person to have this conversation with, because Eva got angry with her last time, and now Eva is being a hypocrite, where she quite happily gossips about anybody else with other people, but as soon as Priya does it and thinks Priya's being unfair, she doesn't say anything to Priya. Because that, like, if I was in that conversation, I would have probably said, hey Priya, I do think you're being a little bit too harsh, a little bit too bitchy about this, but generally I agree with what you're trying to get at, rather than what Eva does later on, which is something else that I mentioned earlier, that is like, this has happened like a couple of times with the same three people, like going after Priya for something Priya did or said, and it's a bit like, you definitely could have handled that in a very different way. Cara and Georgia are currently not in a great place either, for reasons I don't understand. Georgia is just sort of like getting in her own way. Amy, Meg, and Hannah talk about kids and IVF and adoption, etc. And Meg asks Eva some questions too. And this is like the point where I was a bit like, I wonder if these questions are kind of planted in the show, because it seems a little bit too convenient how often these like important hot topics kind of come up as like a conversation in a group. If it is, like, that's fine. I don't really care if it is something planted and sort of scripted in there. I don't know. I just would like to know. So yeah, again, another important conversation, an important topic that comes up, and some people, like, I think what Eva said was very interesting as well, because Meg was like, would you ever consider carrying? She was like, oh, I'm like not against it, but it would be a lot to think about. But yeah, it just happens too much that I don't really feel like this is something that comes up naturally. And I do feel like it's maybe something where they go, here's like a prompt for the day. I can't remember if Amy and Priya have this conversation or if Amy says this to somebody else, because my notes aren't very clear here. But Amy does agree with Priya that Hannah wasn't reading the room about Fiorenza leaving. Danny sends Nay and Priya and Cara and Georgia off on separate dates, because they are like the only two original couples left. Nay and Priya talk about the distance outside, which I think is really important in these shows, because they pair so many people up in these dating shows who live nowhere near each other. And there is another chemistry test as well where some of these like questions come up. So yeah, like I feel like a lot of these shows don't really do enough to encourage those conversations about like logistically, like how would you be dealing with that? Are either of you willing to move? You know, that sort of stuff. They play beer pong, but I can't remember what the drink was. It wasn't beer. With questions, people get to choose like who answers the question. Everyone notices during this like evening that Hannah is making these digs at Amy. Even Amy is not feeling great about some of them. And then she says like the next day to Priya and Eva, I think, or Georgia, or I don't know. Cara, I don't know. There's a few about being described as like different, like quite nasty comment about how she talks too much. Again, this is another moment where I was like, I feel like she has undiagnosed and untreated ADHD, because when she gets like excited in group conversations, she does interrupt people a lot, and that's just like a very ADHD trait. But it was something that was seemingly pissing Hannah off, and she was making some nasty digs about that. And there was one question they were like, "Oh, are you like really interested in Amy?" And she goes, "Yeah." Like not super enthusiastic. It's sort of like I guess so. Either way, Amy was saying that like Hannah, she felt like Hannah was kind of love bombing her up until like the kiss off was over with, and has since like taken a step back. It's almost like she was kind of trying to compete with Fiorenza, or trying to like get in a match so she could be on the TV show for longer. And then she's like, okay, I don't have to do this anymore. Then they have that chemistry test that I was talking about, where they were bringing up some really important topics, and they've literally only been a pair for a really short amount of time. So they haven't really had the chance to have a lot of these conversations or feel comfortable with each other. But it does stir up drama between Amy and Hannah. Then they have a thirst trap party where most of them are dressed in like bondage gear and harnesses. Some of them look incredible. Some of them just look a bit uncomfortable and awkward. Eva brings up the chatting behind Hannah's back in front of the whole group. And she says it under the guise of like, I was waiting to see if you would go and have this conversation with Amy and Hannah or whatever. And it's like, well, again, you didn't have the conversation with Priya either of like, hey, I think some of the things you're saying are a bit unfair, unless it was all cut out, but I kind of just don't think it was. Cara partially agrees, because she's like, I've definitely seen some like beige or orange flags from Hannah's behavior with Amy, but she was kind of keeping it to herself. So she doesn't say anything out loud in this point, being like, yeah, I agree with Priya. She's letting Priya get thrown under the bus for something that she's just been brave enough to say something about. Again, the way she was saying it was not good. I do agree that the way she discussed it was a bit nasty and unfair. But the point she was trying to make and the actual content of what she was trying to say, I agree with. And I think it's fair enough to bring up those things with other people. So yeah, it's all been taken out on Priya again. And we're like sort of finally on the final episode. Priya basically just has to go and make up with Hannah, and Hannah make up with Priya, because Priya is close friends with Amy. And Amy, like again, she was sitting there and was agreeing with it, but was also trying to be like fair to her pairing and like defend her a little bit in that conversation. But yeah, so anyway, in the final episode before the reunion, it's families coming. So the couples spend their last night apart after meeting each other's family for a little bit, which I thought was quite nice that they actually met each other's family as well. Very married at first sight. Amy's sister like makes a really good point about Amy's experience with Hannah so far, where she's like, yeah, it's kind of been rough, but we've not been together long, so I want to like see how it goes. But her sister's like, well, if it's been rough this early, that's not a good sign. Like, that's really something you need to think about. Nay's mum is so cute, and they're both really cute together. The way Nay was sitting and smiling was so adorable. And it was nice to see this side of Nay as well. Again, like it was nice to see this kind of conversation around because Nay's mum is disabled, and Nay has kind of always been like her carer as well. So that was like an important thing that was highlighted too. But they were so sweet and I loved them so much. Both Nay and Priya and their families all seemed to be getting on really well. And it was really nice to see that as well. It all seemed like it was going to be going in like a really positive direction. Eva's best friend wasn't very enthusiastic about Meg. Don't know why. We literally had no conversation into this. Like, if I was Eva, I'd have been like, hey, that's a bit of a weird reaction. Tell me more, girl. Tell me more, girly. So, yeah, now Eva's just not sure about Meg. But Meg and her family all really liked Eva and were like really keen on everything. So then we get to like the final kiss off, basically. Hannah didn't turn, but Amy did turn. Amy was devastated. No idea why that happened. Hannah said she thinks she should have picked Fiorenza. And it's like, wow, great, thank you. Meg turned. Eva didn't turn. Meg was also devastated by this. And then the other two couples did turn for each other. At the reunion, nobody was together anymore, basically. Priya left Nay for her army ex and literally married her in America. And she was pissed about how Nay was talking about it on the show. I was like, I don't blame her. I'm not gonna lie. She spent the entire show with you. Her one option she kind of had at the start, she chose you over her because of the way you were sort of acting about it. And the one thing that she saw as a red flag turned out to actually be something she should be concerned about. And yeah, the only ones who are still together are the ones who got booted out early, Abby and Leisha. Actually a bit of a shock, I'm not gonna lie, but maybe because they left the show didn't have a chance to like poison the relationship, and maybe they actually got to like sort out some of their communication issues. So secret blessing in disguise probably being voted out. Fiorenza now has a girlfriend, not on the show. Fiorenza also hooked up Demi with her best friend, who I think is like a they them non-binary person, because it was like terms being used for like partner and they. Eva is femme now, which was crazy. And then also one new couple was made out of all the people on the show, and that was Meg and Layla, two bisexual women who kind of are both a little bit fluid in their outward presentation. Yeah, that was sort of the recap of season one. I think it is a very Love Island esque show, which I don't think is always the worst thing. It felt like a Love Island vibe because of where they were, how they were mixing people up. You had to be in pairs. You could mix your pairs and were encouraged to kind of like explore other people, like connections with other people. And all of the tasks were there to like either stir some drama, or they were deeper questions that the couples really need to be asking and thinking about. So yeah, I feel like it's like a Love Island concept but queered. I definitely had a lot more fun watching this show versus the straight shows, I'm not gonna lie. It was almost like all the queer stuff were Easter eggs for me, because especially as I was watching this with my mum, there were lots of things that she just didn't understand, where I was like, well, that's what this is. That's what that means. La di da. And it was nice to feel like this show was for me and for my friends, like even if they aren't lesbians or like sapphics. I think a lot of queer people share similar language around their relationships, and at least understand a bit about other queer people's language as well. I'm not surprised it's cancelled because it's queer. Both the I Kissed a Girl and I Kissed a Boy have been cancelled in the UK, even though they were both very popular. Apparently it's to do with budget cuts is what the excuse was. And it's like, okay, well, maybe just base it in England, I guess. Like, I don't know. You could definitely do this on the cheap, bitch. It's not that hard, I don't think. I know everyone's out in the sun and shit, but like, surely you could do something similar in the UK. I don't know. I liked seeing the diversity of the queer community, yeah, being represented on TV by actual real people living those experiences, and getting to talk about that a bit more. And yeah, just seeing people who looked like me, had similar experiences to me, even though they were far younger than I am, far younger than me. M was 25, Layla was 25, Beth was 25, Abby was 24, Amy was 24, Cara was 25, Demi was 23, Fiorenza was 22. Fiorenza was 22. Georgia was 28. Leisha was 22 as well. Meg was 24. Nay was 25, but then was 26. I think she must have turned 26 either just before the show or in the show. I don't know. She's a Virgo. Depends on when they filmed, I guess, because like there's lots of places that stay warm later. But if it's Italy, I don't know. Questions. Priya is 23. Eva was 22. That was shocking. Eva felt like she was older to me. Maybe it's just because she was tall. I don't know. But yeah, liked seeing people navigating their attractions to people. I do like the fact that it's like anybody's an option. This is something that I've always been saying about bisexual TV shows and bisexual like dating shows, and I wish they had more bi dating shows specifically because yeah, I love this I Kissed a Girl. I love that they include bi women, but also I would love to see the tea and the drama of bi cis women, bi trans people, and bi cis men combined together and see what comes out of that. Because, you know, when I watched Married at First Sight a while ago with Ella, who's a trans woman, she's straight, but she was automatically paired with a pansexual cis man who, you know, claimed pansexuality, specifically said he doesn't care about gender or labels and stuff, but then he was like, well, actually, unless you're trans. It's like, well, do you know, you explained to us what pansexual meant and what it meant to you, and you still are a liar. You're lying. Yeah, that was an interesting one. I would like to see that. I mean, I think there's been a few being created in other countries. I think one was Korea, which I want to watch, but I don't know how to watch that. So if you guys know of other queer like reality TV dating shows, UK or otherwise, tell me down below. I want to know. I'll happily go and watch those things if I can access them and discuss those as well, because I do kind of miss talking about some reality TV a little bit, but I just got so fed up of the same shit every time with like Married at First Sight in particular, and seeing similar things being reflected in Love is Blind. But yeah, there's just so much that hasn't been explored when we haven't combined different genders who are open to dating any other gender. Basically, I would really love to see the differences, because I've met a lot of bi men, especially bi cis men, who are not in the queer community really, and they are quite an anomaly. I'm not gonna lie, they are very confusing for my brain, because it's just like, oh, I just fuck dudes sometimes. I just like fall in love with dudes sometimes, or like non-binary people. Nothing else about them is queer in like the political sense of queerness. They are just bisexual men versus, you know, dating people who are queer at heart, queer in the community, and have those kinds of like awarenesses and thoughts and care about those things, even if they're like straight acting or straight seeming. If I had money, I would put that shit on. I would go and produce that shit. Let me go and be the presenter, except you'd have to beep every other word because I can't stop fucking swearing. So I don't know how how presenters do it. I'm not gonna lie. I'd give it a go though. Let me try it out. But yeah, it was nice to see a lot of things that I was already familiar with. Again, I would have loved if the show was maybe a little bit of an older cast, because I just feel like any show that is like marketing like, oh, this is your last desperate chance of finding love, is a bit much when they're like casting 22-year-olds, because it's like, you are a fetus, you're a baby, you're fine. It's okay, you don't need to have found love yet. It's literally all right, don't worry about it, you have life. But yeah, so I am watching season 2 with my mum as well. Let me know if you'd like to hear my thoughts on that towards the end of the season in the comments. Let me know if there's any other shows that you think I should try and check out. I would like to check out the I Kissed a Boy as well, so let me know if you want to see me discuss that as well at some point. Yeah, let me know your thoughts on I Kissed a Girl, what you wish they had maybe done differently, or anything that you really liked that they did that other shows haven't done. That is my video talking about watching I Kissed a Girl season 1. And of course it's cancelled because it's gay. Anyway, go check out one of my other videos. If you're more of a queer media person generally, I have lots of videos talking about queer media. If you're more of a reality TV person, I also have a lot of older videos where I was talking about different seasons of reality TV like Married at First Sight, Love is Blind, and Love Island, I think. And also Strictly Come Dancing. Because I love me a Strictly Come Dancing. Anyway, that's my video. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.